there's something almost creepy about thinking we're not alone, that there's other spirits, angels, loved ones with us and watching us. There's a common joke. People are like, really? There's angels all the time? What about when I go to the bathroom? But there is something profound in that concept because of the ego. And if you're so invested in this material world, we just think we're alone. We don't think anyone's watching. If we can do a white lie or cheat a little bit on this side or say something dishonest or, fantasize about things. Like there's so many levels around wholesome versus unwholesome actions, thoughts, speech, all the traditions around the world, Christians, Muslims, Jews, but also the Buddhists, the Hindus. There's all these teachings around right action, right speech. And I think that there's an accountability built in to this whole experience where life review is where we get to be accountable. And I just think a lot of people don't realize that. And it can sound preposterous that every action, word, thought, deed is being transcribed, recorded, experienced, rippled out. But it does, every tradition talks about it. And it's actually a powerful mobilizer when you really grasp that.
Hey, everyone. Welcome. Today, my brother and I sat down together and did a thought experiment where we assumed, what if near-death experiences are actually real? What would that mean for our lives? What would that look like? And so the two of us talked about, what we love about near-death experiences, why we started this channel, and what it means for us. So I hope you enjoy. Hey, Jay.
Hey, good to see you.
So today I thought we'd do a thought experiment, which is, what if near-death experiences are actually real? Let's pretend for a second we put down our skeptical mindset and just assume what these people share when they die and they come back is actually real. Like, what if that is the real situation that happens, that our consciousness continues after death? And we'll just see where that goes. And also, what you and I had discussed is talking a little bit about the actual implications. Like, how can near-death experiences help us in our daily lives? Like, why are we obsessed with them? Why do we watch them? Why do we make the movies about them? So that's what we're going to talk about today.
For me, it reminds me of a near-death experience that you showed me once. It was a YouTube interview with a gentleman named David McGinley. And I remember I was in a distracted state of mind. I just wanted to kick back, watch a movie. We were just going to hang out for an evening. And you were like, no, I really want to show this to you. And as soon as we started watching it, it shifted me into a state that was one of inspiration, excitement, attunement with the spiritual realities. It's like listening to a powerful sermon or Dharma talk. It is like reading a beautiful spiritual book. It's like opening scripture for people who read scripture as a spiritual practice. I think any of those things can awaken us and reconnect us to our true nature and to God or the angels or the other side. And so for me, near-death experiences have always been so powerful because they're direct personal experiences of people encountering the spiritual reality, whatever that looks like. People have different experiences. It can line up with different traditions. Maybe they see an angel. Maybe they're just in space. But the commonality, of course, is that people feel like they're home. They feel like they're in a place of pure unconditional love, of peace. And it's so radically different than the day-to-day grind of being in a human body with a human ego and all the stresses of day-to-day life that it's just a powerful testimony to the reality of life beyond the ego.
For me, what's most powerful is that if you believe these accounts, then basically what it means is that our consciousness is much greater than our bodies, and it continues after death. Therefore, what all the saints and the mystics and the religions and mediums say is that our consciousness continues after death. This life is short and temporal. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. There's work and so much good that we can do. But ultimately, we continue after death in a much bigger form, more liberated, beautiful. It's such good news, just how I always think about it. It's incredible. It's so exciting. And it sheds light for me on what I should do with my day, what I strive to do whenever I can remember and think about these things. And that speaks to the part where almost everyone talks about the life review. So the life review, if we do unwholesome things, we do negative things, act out of anger, selfishness, greed, we harm people, there's some form of cause and effect of karma at play. So, but that might mean it's not like God sits and judges us necessarily. Often people say they judge themselves in the life review because once you're out of the body, you see things so clearly. It's all telepathic. You have so much spaciousness. You understand. You look at your life, you relive it, and you relive it through all those around us that experienced us in our bodies. If I yell at someone, I would experience it as that person being yelled at by me. It's like, oh man, and they all feel mortified and embarrassed that they're being witnessed by God, by beings of light, by themselves, because we come down here basically to learn and grow. Love, patience, service, joy. It's kind of simple, which is nice. So that I can share more, but that's huge in my life where I've often stopped and gone, I literally don't want to experience this in my life review. Or I now intuit that like, that's my purpose. So I want to try to choose love when I can, as opposed to anger, frustration.
Exactly. I totally agree. I mean, there's something almost creepy about thinking we're not alone, that there's other spirits, angels, loved ones, with us and watching us. There's a common joke. People are like, really? There's angels all the time? What about when I go to the bathroom? And I remember Lorna Burns saying, or was it Lorna? Somebody said, yeah, but think of it as like, an animal, like a dog, like a pet dog. They're not self-conscious about going to the bathroom if you're standing right there. There's no shame in it. So I always think that's funny because people are like, really? The angels are always with us, even when I want to be alone. But there is something profound in that concept because of the ego. And if you're so invested in this material world, we just think we're alone. We don't think anyone's watching. If we can do a white lie or cheat a little bit on this side or say something dishonest or, fantasize about things. Like there's so many levels around wholesome versus unwholesome actions, thoughts, speech, all the traditions around the world, Christians, Muslims, Jews, but also the Buddhists, the Hindus. There's all these teachings around right action, right speech. And I think that there's an accountability built in to this whole experience where life review is where we get to be accountable. And I just think a lot of people don't realize that. And it can sound preposterous that every action, word, thought, deed is being transcribed, recorded, experienced, rippled out. But it does, every tradition talks about it. And it's actually a powerful mobilizer when you really grasp that.
Yeah, it is powerful. And mostly because the other side and spirit is rooting for us. They are so supportive of us. They're really not judgmental of us. We're like with toddlers. Toddlers in the world are kids and we make mistakes. We get angry at tantrums and they're so nurturing, it seems like. Also, the other piece about like life reviews is like the good. Our next film coming out is Bill, and he says a few times, he's like, thank God I did good in my life, watching his life review. Because just as the bad has ripple effects, I yell at my neighbor, then my neighbor takes that anger out on his dog takes it out on another dog. Like that ripple just continues. It doesn't stop. Likewise with the good positive actions, I give money to a homeless person. That homeless person's going to feel that love. And if I stop and talk to him, feel seen, he's going to interact with his friend in another way. And it just continues. So it's actually quite exciting that we get to put out all these ripples of love and peace and joy into the world. And that's how we change the world. I mean, policy, politics, economics, foreign, like this, that's the truth, which is what all the spiritual teachers would say. And it's hard to connect it all, but I think that is very real. These small acts of kindness can change the world.
Yeah. I think Betty Eadie, one of the original early NDEers who wrote the book, Embraced by the Light, her second book was called The Ripple Effect, or it's just all about ripples, how every action, that there's ripples out that we often have no idea about. And often people report that during their life review in their NDE, they're always amazed or surprised that how big of ripples occurred from small acts, and how they, they were shown actions that they never would have guessed. They would have thought, oh, it was that time I made a big donation, or the time I did this big thing. And really what they're shown are things that they never even remembered. Giving a smile to someone on the street, a helping hand, giving a quarter, $1 to somebody, stuff that you wouldn't think of. On the other side, they were shown how powerful and profound a ripple those small actions have, which is pretty incredible when you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. And again, I just come back to how crazy is it that there's a divine spirit all around us that created us that we can call on at any time. And I feel like it's validated by so many forms, mediumship and psychics, saints and mystics that can achieve communion states through samadhi, through meditation techniques. And there's near-death experiences. There's philosophy, there's religious experiences. A lot of people, and through history is religions and just people believed Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism. But now I think near-death experiences, why we're doing this channel, is it's this global phenomenon that's pretty validated. And to me, that's what kicked me over into the theistic belief from not really believing in God. It was a full conversion experience, as you know, because I found it, I always call this evidence-based theory. You watch enough of these, read enough books. To me, these are authentic people speaking the truth, drastic, transformative change in their lives. It's very compelling. It made me go, you know what? At a certain point, I was skeptical, and then finally I was like, man, I just now believe, if I was a betting man, I would go all in that I believe this is really the case, and that we're actually confused. Our minds are so limited because of the body, because of everything. We don't fully understand the big picture. So it's just so exciting, really.
Definitely. It's exciting. And that's why we wanted to create this channel, just to highlight these stories, because we think it helps people. It's just a net positive to the world. People can, wherever they are in their life, whether they're struggling or have a loss of a loved one, or they're depressed or whatever, anxious. I loved, I think it was Mary Neal? I think she gave a TED talk about her near-death experience, right? And she used this great metaphor that I think about all the time, which is, it's like going away to summer camp. So you're like a 12-year-old, a 14, 15-year-old, you go away for summer camp for 3 weeks, and it's fun, but then sometimes it can be hard. It can be bad weather. You get homesick, it's a long time. And let's say you're young and you start to miss your mom and dad. You miss the cooking. You're just maxed out or kind of whatever. And she's like, but knowing that in a few weeks you'll be back home, which is your true home, where your mom will cook a delicious home cooked meals. You get your friend, your siblings, your parents, your family, your familiar surroundings. It's like this life is like being away at summer camp, and it can be fun, wonderful. It can be really hard and scary and exhausting and overwhelming. It can be a lot of suffering. And yet, if we think this is all there is, we can just spiral or stay in depression or anxiety. But if we also know, this is a temporary experience, this human body, this human experience, and my home, my true home, I will go back to. It might be a little while, but I'll be returning back home where it's like my true self. And it's a beautiful, special thing, that home, because we have homesickness while we're here, but it can give us the strength to endure unimaginable suffering. And I think that's why religion or spirituality has given many people who are in extraordinarily difficult circumstances, war, famine, disease, concentration camps, you name it. They have an inner strength knowing that they can endure what's here because it's ultimately temporary and we're ultimately going back to our true home.
Yeah. NDEers and saints, that's what they say, is that trials, tribulations, hardship actually strengthens our faith. It brings us closer to God. It makes us turn back towards the higher power again and again, And to me, there's two things. One is, back to kindness. There's really nothing the other day I was in in town, and I passed a homeless person at 7-Eleven, and there was a guy in his 30s. He was like sunburned, and I don't know. My judging mind was like, oh, this guy doesn't look great. Maybe he's drinking alcohol or using drugs or something. He looked up at me. I nodded. I said something to him, went in, came out, walked past him again. I made it like 20 steps, was crossing the street. And then I said, you know what? I have some money in my wallet still. And I was like, I'm just going to trust. Like, I just felt called. So I went back to him, and I always have a rule, as you know, but where I don't just give money. I ask that. I think the human contact is more important actually than the money. So I said, how you doing, man? And like, he was like, I'm hungry. Like, I'm hungry. I, mumbled something I didn't understand. We went back and forth a little. I was like, hey, look, man, do you need any help? And I gave him what I had in my wallet, just like a $20 bill. And he said, he didn't say anything. He took the money, and then actually he kind of went like this. So I wasn't sure if he was praying or what, but I walked away, and I was doing something in my car. And as I was pulling away, I saw he came out with a big meal, some kind of food, and he was like eating it standing on the street. And I kind of smiled because I was like, nice. Like, that's what I was hoping for. Because I said when I gave him the money, I was like, why didn't you get some nice hot food, man? But he didn't get alcohol. That's what the judging mind. And then as I was driving, I was like, man, I don't know what's better. I don't know what a better feeling is than that. It's kind of the best feeling of like, man, I just made a difference for him. Or like, even if I did or didn't, I felt good. It was a kind of a selfish thing. I thought that was kind of a cool story.
That's a great story. I think it captures it, and that's a universal thing, that the best feeling is being of service, of helping, of giving. It's so cheesy and so cliche, but the idea that we're here not to take, not to get, but to give, and the idea of like when we die, what we really take with us back to the other side is the love that we've experienced, the love that we've given, the love that we've shared. What we've done for others is really what most people say. And so it would make sense that on a soul level, we feel tremendous joy. We actually are meant to and want to share and give. And yeah, I think it's one of the best things in the world. And once you're hooked on it, it's incredible. And like you said, Bill Tortorelli, we're releasing his film in a couple of weeks, he talked a lot about after his near-death experience, he just wants to help anyone and everything. Like, he'll just go across the street to ask if someone needs help carrying some groceries or checking in on people. He was so kind when we went to go shoot him for the channel. He was just like, he wanted to give us a lift. He wanted to give us some food. And I think sometimes people want to be able to help. And so sometimes I'm like, no, I don't need anything. I'm good. Actually, like, some people really want opportunities to help. And that's what gives strong communities and neighbors. And it's what this world needs more than ever, I think.
Yeah, I think so. The other thought that I had is, I don't think we understand the power of our minds. I remember you showing me Betty Eadie, kind of making me, I listened to her book on audio, and then I read it again a few years later. She says it well. They all say it. And a lot of the holy people talk about it. I mean, the power of our minds is immense. Science, physics, medicine, placebo effect. There's so many angles to try to understand our mind, but if we concentrate it, if we practice some form of meditation, prayer, and we quiet it, what does science say? We use 5-10% of our brain. I mean, all the scans, all the way to what Jesus taught and others, that like, it's like miracles. It's like matter versus mind versus energy. And I believe people that train their minds through discipline and techniques or have strong faith can like do really, really powerful things. And so it inspires me to try to practice that and try to access deeper levels, knowing that we're really consciousness that's going to go beyond the body. So it's like, hey, might as well like tap into our true nature now. That's why we call the channel Coming Home. Is like, we can come home right now to our true nature, which is God, light, soul, that does nothing but enlighten me, it fires me up and makes me excited. I'd rather live my life in that way as best as I can.
Yeah, 100%. And I was just thinking like this whole phenomenon of near-death experiences, which is growing. It seems more and more people are having them due to modern medicine, but also more people are sharing them on platforms like YouTube or writing books. What's so incredible is like it feels like a modern phenomenon that is our way of reconnecting. Like religion is losing people. There's a shift happening collectively, culturally. Young people aren't joining the church or traditional religion. They're actually leaving. So NDEs are giving people windows into what soul is, who we really are. And that's what all the teachings say is like, who are we really? Because the great delusion, Ram Dass was great at articulating this. We all think that we're these egos and these bodies and we're these individuals cut off from everybody else. And when you're in that paradigm, in that worldview, fundamentally, it sets the stage to be pursuing money and power and pursue pleasure and short-term pleasure and satisfaction. Like it's just when all you think is this is all there is, and it's just me and I'm going to get what's mine. And so you hear like the age-old conversion experiences of people waking up that it's not about me and I, it's about us or service, or there's about God or spirit. And I think NDEs are so great because it's just helping reorient us to like, oh, if it's not just about me and my ego, then you shift out of from a life dedicated to making money and getting power for the sake of yourself, for the sake of ego, which is really out of fear. And then you can start to open to like, oh, what's really important? And that's what, all the great spiritual teachers talk about love and of service and generosity and connection. And so I think in the world today, NDEs can provide such a nourishing reminder, spiritual sustenance of like, okay, so if God is real and spirits and angels and saints are real, then that means we need, it's like a wake up. It's like we have to pursue and follow these spiritual practices to reconnect to the true essence of who we are. Otherwise, the risk is you're going to die. And then you go to the afterlife and best of luck. You either go through a reincarnational journey, or if you're not into the reincarnation, you deal with it on the other side one way or another. No one really knows. But we have to account. There's accountability at the end of the day. And if you don't realize that, it's just unfortunate. It's like a kid eating a giant bag of candy. They're not thinking about the sugar crash, or it's like, it's a fundamental level of understanding the way the world works. And it's not trying to be dogmatic. It's leaving all the dogma. It's just remembering the truth of who we are and then adjusting our lives accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll wrap this up here in a minute, but my final thought is just on what you were saying, which is, at the end of the day, we don't really know, of course, right? But we will find out. But in terms of this thought experiment, it's like, what if it's true and we can live accordingly? That's kind of a win-win to me. It's like, I'd rather do that and then hope that's the case. Worst case, we go to black and nothingness. Okay. Worst case is I tried to love and be generous more. And lastly, I just think it's so, there's real world benefits. There's tangible this isn't, to me, this is not theoretical. Let's talk about heaven and hell and the afterlife. To me, it's, again, guides my daily life a lot of the time. My behaviors, my actions, my thoughts, my words, how I interact with my wife, my daughter, with my family and friends. And that's what we want to understand and talk about more, with this channel, like as a living form of spirituality. As you said, religion, traditional religion, less people are drawn to, it seems. I love a lot of all traditional religions. I don't love maybe fundamentalism or dogmatism, but there's so much truth and goodness there. Jesus understood all of this, as did many people. And so this lights us up, so much so. And so it's like a new form of spirituality that's so direct. It's beautiful.
And I just want to say, I appreciate you for saying that, because we both love religion, and I majored in comparative religion and studied philosophy and religion in grad school as well. And it's the dogmatism that is hard. What's so great about near-death experiences is a number of people like Betty Eadie or Howard Storm, they meet Jesus in their near-death experience, but it's like a living, breathing, direct encounter with Jesus. And so it's not a theoretical, like in the scriptures it says this, it's just a direct, beautiful relational experience. And when they share that, it can bring so much inspiration and hope. And it's a reminder, because Jesus in particular, of course, so many religious teachers and founders, it really does come back to the same principles of love, kindness, patience, humility, generosity, forgiveness. These are found in the Buddhist traditions, the Hindu traditions, the Jewish, the Muslim, Christian traditions. So it's a reminder. It kind of, as humans, I think we harden, we polarize, we tribalize. That's part of what it means, I think, to be human and have a mind. And we can't help it. We get competitive, we get angry, we get fearful, we get tribal. But all the teachers, including Jesus, were reminding us, no, we're all love. You're all souls beloved by God. And wake up. You're gods, actually. You're like infinite, beautiful spiritual beings. You're not human. You're not this human form. So these NDEs are just powerful reminders and testaments to these spiritual realities. Even if we don't know the exact realities on the other side, it's very...
The power of near-death experiences, I think, also is not just one person's experience or a second person's experience. It's consistently, you start to see dozens and dozens and hundreds of these accounts, and they seem genuine to me. And we pick those that we think can articulate really well and seem very genuine. And then you start to see a pattern emerge authentically from people living their lives, religious, non-religious, atheistic, Buddhist, Christian, Muslim, old, young, of all classes, races, and they all say basically the same thing, different variations. There are differences in a lot of them, but actually the patterns emerge so clearly. And that's why we're doing, in particular, the videos, the films, so that we can catalog and have a bunch of them, soon 30 or 50 of them, so that you can watch one after the other. And it's like a case presentation for the afterlife or consciousness, I love that.
Love it too. And some of them are very complex and long, and some are really simple. They literally saw a tunnel of light. They saw a giant white light, and they felt love. And that was it. And they woke back up. Or like Chris Guido, he heard a voice and heard his grandfather's voice saying, it's not your time. You have more to do. And that was it. But these experiences have profound, life-changing ripple effects for these people. And just experiencing a white light and experiencing, directly tasting the unconditional love forever stays with them. And then you can interpret that however you want from whatever your orientation is or your spiritual cosmology. But I agree. When you hear them over and over and over, it's a form of evidence. It's not going to satisfy the hardcore scientific, rational folks, but it's a type of phenomenological experience. It's subjective experience. But when you hear it over and over, you have to really do some gymnastics to say all of these people are making this up so that they can get attention online. I mean, to say that about all of them is so it's limited to imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been an awesome conversation, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sitting and talking about it. And I'm sure we'll do it again soon.
Yeah. Looking forward to it as always. Thanks.
See ya.
See ya.